Hello and welcome to the AFP webinar, The New Face of Fundraising and Engagement, Smartphones and Mobile Web Technology. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Tanya Zampieri. Tanya has been a pioneer in the mobile and nonprofit space, becoming an expert on how charities can best leverage this rapidly changing technology and how generational shifts are impacting consumer behavior expectations. She conceptualized and launched one of the first nonprofit-focused iPhone apps, Tap and Give 2009, on iTunes, which delivered brand awareness, fundraising, and supporter engagement to participating nonprofits. Today, Tanya heads up the mobile team at Raleigh, North Carolina-based Atlantic VT, educating nonprofits, startups, and businesses on the importance of thinking mobile first. And with that, Tanya, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Jessica. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody today. I'm really excited. As you can see from my title slide here, I've been involved in mobile technology for quite some time. 2009 doesn't seem like that long ago, but in the sense of how things have changed so dramatically in the entire mobile channel, it's a constant job just to keep up with what's happening, which is why you guys are probably here with me today, because there is so much that goes into the word mobile in the terms of fundraising and nonprofits, and so it's a very loaded word probably to most of you because it can mean so many things. So I hope that today will be a great opportunity to understand what this channel means and how it's going to best help you do your jobs as well as possible. So the big overarching challenge is that today, as we sit just over the second half of 2012, I can't believe how fast this year is going by, that regardless of the size, type, or mission of any nonprofit out there today, and frankly any organization, period, creating and implementing a mobile strategy and technology is a critical and required component of any marketing, communications, and fundraising plan today. I feel very strongly about that, and I'm here to educate you all as to not only why, but how to effectively figure out what the best strategy is to meet your needs. You're going to see some images throughout, such as this one on this screen called where I'm showing California Coalition for Youth. We ran I was in charge of a grant contest here at Atlantic VT, and it was to help educate all nonprofits about the importance of mobile, and we were able to give away a $25,000 grant last month to a local charity, which I'll be talking briefly about what the mobile grant will be used for, because I think you'll find a lot of interest in that. But so I wanted to just let you know some of those images there are not actually live things that are happening, but we hope to be able to get funding and make them happen soon. So the agenda today is going to keep it to some pretty basic steps here. First, we're going to talk about mobile device adoption. Meaning, where things are at with regard to the U.S. population, adult population, and get into some specifics perhaps on demographics, which may speak to each of you individually because you may be focused in particular ages or generations or socioeconomic statuses. So we'll talk a bit about that. Then we're going to talk about the breakdown of the mobile channel, and with that I mean SMS or text, smartphone apps, and then the mobile web. And then I'm going to talk about mobile-first strategy, which I'll go into a little bit, fundraising opportunities, and throughout the presentation there's going to be some best practices and examples. So really, at the end of this presentation, I hope to help you determine which mobile channels are going to be best suited for your organization. That's going to be definitely one of the big key takeaways for today. And also, I want you all to be thinking about why mobile first is the right option for you and the right investment. And so you'll understand further what that means. But I really understand, having worked in the nonprofit sector myself. I worked for United Way. I worked with the ALS Association, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. and have volunteered in many capacities at other organizations, so I do understand what you're all going through today and do speak from firsthand experience. So I'm feel honored to be able to be working still in this sector. So moving on. All right, so first I just wanted to get an understanding of who I have with me today so that I can speak as directly to your situation as possible. So we have obviously the first executive director with development duties. Perhaps you're part of the fund development staff and you only have development duties with your job title. Perhaps you're on the development staff, but you're also, like I did when I was in fundraising, I was also writing press releases, doing communications, and other marketing activities. Maybe you're just on to collect information for other parts of the organization, or perhaps you work more in a volunteering capacity as a board member or on the development committee and so forth. It looks like, not everybody has answered yet, so I'm still going to wait a couple of moments, but so far it is looking like the yellow response or the fund development staff. A lot of you are where I was when I was back in the sector, kind of wearing several hats. So I guess that's probably a pretty common situation for most of us. And Jessica, do you want me to wait any longer to see if any people are going to be answering?
I think it's leveled out, so you could go ahead and move on.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, about 50% of you have other duties, so I'm going to definitely be talking a lot about mobile in the context of marketing and communications as well as, explicit fundraising. So I think that this is really going to work well for everybody online. Okay, so I want to definitely also have a little fun with this because, as I said, I got a smartphone back in 2009 when I realized that, this is really where we were all going to communicate and engage with one another. So I thought this infographic was kind of fun. You see somebody sitting on a toilet there, and it really is trying to be tongue-in-cheek. But the bottom line is, and as it says at the top, mobile is becoming the connective tissue of nearly every aspect of life, making it the most personal and most pervasive media in history. So it really is so important to be paying attention to this rapidly growing technology and how to make your organizations, mobile ready. So with that said, many of us are addicted to checking our phones. This was just out on a Huffington Post blog back in June, and I don't know about you, but on the faces down below, I definitely have had the panic look when I realize I don't have my phone in my possession. So I'm not doing a poll, but perhaps you can self-identify here based on whether you feel relieved, which is, hopefully in some cases the way it is. But the bottom line is that younger generations, and even, as I'll point out in a bit, it really is, everybody has a smartphone now, or at least a mobile phone, and we're getting close to that being the case for smartphones. So having said that, I wanted to kind of do a little trivia here and see if you guys knew when we actually, or if we have actually hit the 50% mark for smartphone adoption. Our choices, of course, are the end of last year, December 2011, earlier this year in February, earlier this year in May, or it actually hasn't happened where we've hit 50%. And just to clarify, this is for U.S. adults 18 to 65 years old that own a smartphone versus a mobile phone. So it's not like all percentage of every U.S. adult, but those who do have smartphones. What do you think it is? Okay, so far December is winning out, and people are still taking it because maybe you're Googling it to find out. All right, well, 60% 50% of you said it's December, and 21% said it was February, with then another smattering in May, and it hasn't happened. It actually was February, according to, I think it was ComScore, that we hit the 50% mark. So many of you thought it was even sooner, which is probably exactly why you're on this call, because you realize the need to invest in this space. Okay. I just pulled this in the last couple of weeks, and I thought it was a great bar graph to show that when we talk about how to reach constituents in mobile and in smartphones, we're not just thinking about those people with deep pockets. Okay, those that are, of course, as a fundraiser, you have to think about, well, hey, we want to convert small gift givers into large gift givers. And, that tends to be where a lot of fundraisers want to focus. However, what I try to educate on as well is the fact that many times you're going to be raising money through grants, and those grants are going to be given to programs. And, as you'll see in this bar graph here, I mean, the largest segment, the second to largest is income under $25,000 a year. And that really, points to, the underserved and how you can, there are going to be grants, and I hope that there already are. I really want to start seeing more and more of that and educating grant givers and foundations as to why it's important to give in this space, because there are many underserved and retired, that's their main mode of getting information. A lot of people are opting to just have one bill for their phone, for their internet, for their texting, and so if your site and your programs are not being able to be accessed via a mobile device in a way that can be engaging and user-friendly, you're really missing out and not achieving your mission the way that you need to be. Because it is happening. You just start looking around, you start seeing who it is that's holding on to phones, and you're going to be really shocked here. As you see, it's, parts of the country used to be obviously just the bigger markets where smartphone penetration was happening most quickly, and now it's happening in places like the Midwest, rapid growth, because of the fact that there is such a, the AT&T and Verizon and Sprint, they realize the need to invest in broadband access and making sure that speed of internet is fast on mobile devices. I was just reading an article blog this morning on how smartphone users are not 100% satisfied, and again, this is across the country, so I'm sure in certain areas it's great and in others it's not, but, because usage is so high, they're struggling to keep up with the demand of broadband, and so, that is still a contentious issue, but they are investing and it is moving forward. I think other reasons, and I know other reasons that people are adopting it, is because the functionality of the phones is becoming better. It used to be back in 2009 when I launched Tap and Give that 99.99% of apps were all games, right? And games were really the way that apps kind of broke out, mobile apps broke out into popularity. And that is no longer the case anymore. I don't know the exact breakdown and percentage, but I can tell you from firsthand experience and research that there are many applications out there that are very functional, usable, life-improving applications. And I'm going to go over some of those in the context of different nonprofits. And then finally, pricing. You don't have to have a year or two long contract to get a smartphone. You can get them, pay as you go. You can prepay on smartphones now. So a lot, again, of those underserved populations, the Hispanic population, a lot of minorities are going that route, and they're having, they're able to have smartphones as well. So Jessica, I'm not sure if we have any questions yet, but I just wanted to see if there were any questions specifically about adoption rates of mobile.
Yes, we do have one question that just got submitted, and just a reminder to our attendees, if you do have a question, click on the Q&A button in the upper left-hand corner of the webinar window, type in a question, and then click Ask to submit it. And the question that was just asked is, what is the difference between broadband and mobile applications?
Sure. So broadband is actually the term that's used to pick up a Wi-Fi signal. So, for example, if you have a smartphone or a laptop or tablet for that matter, and you go into Starbucks or another coffee shop and they have Wi-Fi, that's you're pulling off of their Wi-Fi access, meaning internet access, okay? So, but if you obviously have, let's say, with my iPhone, I have the 3G, right, that pulls in, and so I can have theoretically access to the internet regardless of whether I'm in a Starbucks or driving down the road. Not looking at my phone when I'm driving down the road, but you get my point. You don't have to be near any particular hotspot per se in order to pick up the wireless internet access. So the broadband is relating to the ability for phone providers, and users to quickly access that internet. And if there's many, many people trying to access from that same technology with the towers and so forth that the phone companies are putting up, that's going to slow down speed of internet, right? So the more that use it, the more it slows down, which makes sense. So they're investing heavily in making sure that they, create that technology so that the more people that are buying these smartphones with wireless capabilities, they're able to use them properly and the way that they're meant to be used. So whereas mobile applications, I think, was the other half of the question, mobile applications are what you download onto your smartphone, and certainly every one of the phone systems has them, whether it's an iPhone or a BlackBerry or an Android device that's an operating system. And so they're going to have their own applications that are put into the stores, the iTunes store or Android store. Most are free, some are paid. And so those typically have a lot of functionality, even if you don't have access. So if you're let's say you're on the plane and you have to have it on, you're not going to have access to Wi-Fi, although you can purchase that now on some flights. You could still use certain applications without having access to the internet. So I'll stop it at that because we could go off on that tangent for a long time. But I'm next going to move on to the breakdown of the mobile channel, unless there are any other questions.
That's all the questions at this time.
Okay, perfect. So the way I break down mobile is into 3 channels. That is SMS, or text. We call it texting, probably in layman's terms. Smartphone applications, and then the mobile web. And the reason that I put them in that order is that really that's where we saw the evolution of mobile technology, right? I mean, we first had the texting. In fact, I can remember when I would, friends of mine, I guess, got into texting sooner than I did, and I'd say, stop texting me, I don't have a text plan, and now I can't even imagine not having an unlimited text plan, because it just is such a way that we communicate now versus picking up the phone and talking to people. And then we had smartphone apps, and I'll explain a little bit on that rationale, and now we are seeing mobile web browsing with the most capability that I've seen it. But to be honest, smartphone apps actually became popular in usage more so than the mobile web, and so that's why I have that order. And so I'm going to go into some good examples of those so that you can each try to understand how it might apply to your organization and, which strategy might be the best to start with. First, I'd like to ask, though, a little trivia. When was the first text message sent from the years I'm showing here? Was it 1972, 1980, 1989, 1992, or 2005? When was the actual first text message sent according to Wikipedia? Okay, a lot of people are saying it started in the 2000s in 2005 with about the same amount, saying it was in 1992. Okay, I'm going to give you just about 15 more seconds here. One person was daring and said 72, which, okay. Well, there's actually two correct answers. According to Wikipedia, they wanted to cite two answers. The real answer is 1989, because back in 1989, here in the United States, there was a U.S.-based text that was sent using beeper technology. So many people probably remember having beepers. That was used here in the States, I believe in Florida. And then Vodafone over in Europe in 1992, some techies over there sent a Merry Christmas text for the first time using the Vodafone infrastructure. So 89 was actually the first time, but then 92, I think, is when it really started becoming, an actual reusable technology. So just a little trivia there. Okay. So what are some of the best uses of texting? In my opinion, from all the research that I've done, and there's a lot of really great examples, and I'm going to go into one in a little bit of detail in the next slide. Education, empowerment, being included, and alerts or last-minute type of things, I believe are some of the best. So, for instance, if you think about education, understanding how to better manage your money, let's say, or manage your health, that's a very personal thing, and to people, right? Both our health care, how we're feeling, and our finances are things that are very personal to us and wouldn't necessarily apply to other people in the same situation. Those are things that, I would be okay with receiving via text. Empowerment. I do believe that there is a place for texting with political and advocating, how I feel about things and putting my voice behind that. And there are some instances where empowerment, for instance, with PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, they actually did a campaign, and you can easily search this on Google, where they were targeting 18 to 22-year-olds, perhaps even younger. I'm kind of pulling from my memory reserves here. But they wanted to use texting as a way to engage this younger audience in how they are, trying to go against the big corporate giants who are still doing a lot of inhumane practices with animals. And so they used the texting method to reach out to this audience and get these teens engaged. And, of course, the thought is that then they'll be with PETA throughout their lifetime because they're very passionate about treating animals ethically. And another example which I use as include or loyalty is, for instance, if you are I can see being a Target junkie or other stores where, you're really starting to buy things more and more online. You can opt in. I'm starting to see this now with certain stores where you can opt in to get specials texted to you, which then leads you to a mobile link and brings you to a mobile landing page where you can get more information. I also think that things like contests, kind of the wisdom factor, what's in it for me, is a great way to get people opted in. And I certainly think that there's a lot of space in the nonprofit space to integrate contests around social media and getting younger people perhaps engaged in that way. Because really it's about, I think a lot of times nonprofits are struggling with getting new constituents into their database. So a lot of times giving out our phone number is a very personal thing, but if you're, engaging them with something that's going to give back to them, I think is a great way that you can use text messaging. And alerting. And I know a lot of schools now collect students' numbers. So so that if anything, God forbid, a school shooting or a massive, natural disaster of some kind should be taking place, the safety and welfare of the students and faculty and staff, can be quickly, communicated. This is my personal belief, but not the best use of SMS text is fundraising. I think that the proof has shown itself that there are certain organizations where this is an excellent way to raise money, but as I was saying, it's a very personal channel in a lot of ways. I don't want to receive text messages from people that I don't know, and to me, it's just something that is not necessarily going to be a great way to engage unless it's just a one-time gift of natural disaster, which we've really seen, and I won't go into that since I think there's a lot of examples there that people have read about already. One program that I really wanted to highlight is the American Cancer Society's Quit Buddy campaign. This I found out about earlier this year when I was at eNoGive in San Francisco, which was right before the N10 conference on technology. The American Cancer Society has implemented this program where you text in Buddy to this short code, and it sends you every day a message on how, really a motivational message to quit smoking. This one is one that I captured. They'll send you one every day, but then if you hit type in Buddy and send a message back, they'll actually send you more personalized, almost sometimes funny messages. And so it's really, they didn't, just pick the word Buddy out of thin air. I think that they are really trying to personify somebody being there to help that particular person stay committed to quit smoking. And so, really, this is ingenious because, they want to become relevant, and part of their mission, of course, is to help people to stop dying from cancer, right, and to live longer lives. I think their motto is, we're the sponsor of birthdays, right? So obviously this, with lung cancer still being, a very high incidence of cancer, this is a specific targeted way to use a program to help in, this breaking this habit. And to me, it's about building that relationship. And then, you're building that relationship. They're an advocate of yours. And then as an advocate, they're also going to happen to be a, donor because you're relevant to their lives. And so I really think that that's a great example. And if you Google American Cancer Society Quit Buddy campaign, there's lots of information. And I'll actually have a link on the slide at the end with resources where you can see all of the presentations that were given at eNoGive, including the one about all of American Cancer Society's mobile channel programs. Okay, so smartphone applications is the next area, and certainly there's not a ton of fundraising specific examples yet. However, I did take a snapshot here of the Relay for Life app, and this was done, I think that 2011 is the very first year that certain chapters of American Cancer Society did the Relay for Life mobile app. And I don't have the case study cited here, but you can easily, like I said, Google's my best friend. Just Google that stuff, and you will find that there was a significant increase in the amount of money raised through their mobile app versus the desktop app. So they compared a lot of people who had used the desktop app. I believe it was in this case for the Team Raiser product of Convio. And they then used the mobile app, and there was not only an increase in the people who had done it in the past, but even for those who had never fundraised for the event before, just the first-time fundraiser, the numbers were very astonishing. So I encourage you, if you do focus on third-party events or the team model of fundraising events, that this is definitely a utility application. And, for many of you, you may have Blackbaud, Convio, Razoo, ARTES perhaps if you're up in Canada. This is really going to be something I think we're going to see much more of. My company has just partnered with Salsa Labs. They are, looking to invest in this space because really it comes down to people are, they're using their smartphones to when they're waiting at the doctor's office, when they're waiting, their kid is playing soccer, so many different places now that we can just pick up our smartphone and get some emails, sent back or returned, or, do some billing online. I mean, banking applications are, definitely, adopted dramatically over the last year. So to me, this is just another, when I say I'm going to fundraise for an event, this is, a commitment I'm making, and it's also, something that I know that when I've done these in the past, I love going in and seeing, the thermometer, how much, my thermometer is up towards my goal, and to be able to do that from the ease of my smartphone is going to make me more successful. So I can certainly answer specific questions on that, but that's where I'll leave that for now. So the other smartphone app model I wanted to talk about was, as I was mentioning, we gave away a $25,000 grant towards a mobile usage last month, and we had a lot of fun with it. So I'll have a slide at the end again with resources where you might want to take a look. So we had videos that nonprofits have to submit videos and everything, which was really fun. But the winning charity was here in Raleigh, and it's called Passage Home. And they have many, many programs that, cover housing, after-school programs, and youth. They have a thrift shop. I mean, they're really about giving a hand up, not a hand out, is kind of their model. So it's definitely, Health and Human Services. And this woman, who's their VP of Development, had a really great idea to come up. She said, how about if, we were to create a registry app much like a wedding registry? Because they have so many programs that they have to go out of pocket for, or they have to recruit heavily, calling on businesses, calling on churches, calling on schools, and of course, individuals as well. But, they really were, spending or have been spending in the past a lot of time, staff time, and logistics time, and money getting these programs funded. So the way it would work is just like you were to go in and check off a, let's say somebody's ordering, a crystal bowl for their wedding, you could check off that you want to provide 10, basketballs for the summer camp out of the 25 that they need. So, and then, it would be basically a virtual gift, but you're able to see firsthand, there'd be images of the items. There'd also be a gallery where, they'll have pictures and video from the programs used. And so I think that especially younger generations now, they want to understand how their money is being used. It's not any, writing the checks anymore and saying, good luck with that. People really want to get this understanding of how their money is being contributed to make somebody's life better. And so this app went out, and we're actually we liked the idea so much that beyond launching this for Passage Home, we're actually going to be creating this as a product so that we can offer it to the nonprofit industry. Because really, I could see this working pretty much for almost any type of nonprofit, particularly those that, that serve communities like this, or any animal-related cause. I mean, really, you could itemize virtually any mission that you do. So I'm definitely eager to hear from people's thoughts on that if we want at the end. And then also I found there's some great other utility apps that some bigger brand nonprofits are doing. And this one is by the American Red Cross. And they have apps out there now that help you with learning first aid. I remember taking my first aid course when I was a camp counselor one time and, having to read the manual and everything like that. Well, sure, I learned it to take the quiz or the exam, but how nice would it be if on your phone you're in a real-life situation where somebody gets stung by a bee or has a heart attack. Of course, there's a disclaimer when you download the app that they don't take any responsibility. But the fact that you could have this type of information at your fingertips is amazing. I mean, it really can help dramatically increase or decrease, I should say, people getting hurt seriously or getting into some really emergency situations. Other examples that I actually just discovered before I even submitted this presentation are with breastcancer.org. They've come out in the last year with a couple of different apps. One is very specific to breast cancer, and it's called the Breast Cancer Diagnosis Guide. And then the other one is in conjunction with breast cancer and fight colorectal cancer, which actually happens to be one of the nonprofits who had applied for our grant contest. And it's called Cancer Coach. And so it really helps in personalizing information so that the app that you're using on your smartphone you're getting information based on inputs that you've provided that is specific to you. So it's not going to be like, because, I mean, breast cancer has many different stages, has many different types of breast cancer out there, and so your prognosis and your treatment is going to be is individual. And so really managing that cancer journey is becoming easier through the use of mobile technology. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over to you guys for a second. Which, if any, of the mobile channels have you utilized in your nonprofit career? We've got, obviously, the first one we went over, which is the SMS or text-to-give. Mobile web or mobile donation forms would fall into that. A smartphone application, as we just covered. Or perhaps you have done a combination of two or all three of these. And then finally, you've not actually started using mobile in your nonprofit career. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to answer on that. So far, it looks like the overwhelming majority of you on the call are in the situation that you have not started using mobile. So it looks like a handful of you have used text-to-give or using mobile donation forms or perhaps have mobilized your website. A couple of you smartphone app, and then a few of you have used two or more, but definitely overwhelming majority, as I would have suspected, is that you have not yet started using mobile. All right. I think, yes, I'll pass it over to you, Jessica, because it looks like we do have a few questions.
We do. First question, what does SMS mean?
I was afraid that somebody's going to ask that, and I really should know that off the top of my head. It's simple messaging syndication is one of the terms. I've seen a couple of different ones, but basically it's messaging syndication, and it's done through the same line that our phones are on. Is basically what SMS stands for.
Thank you. Another question. Someone asked, what about silent auctions?
Silent auctions and mobile are definitely something I've seen more and more. I have gone to some live events where they use that, and I've seen a couple of different models. When I went to an event about a year and a half ago, it was for it was called the Fur Ball. So you can imagine what type of nonprofit that was for. But it was, they were handing out, not iPhones. It was, why am I not? It was the iPod, the iPod Touch. They were handing them out. So you handed in your, I think, license or something, and then basically the application was preloaded on the iPod Touch. So basically you could go ahead and bid on the items right from that device. Well, now, the last one I went to was in June, and this was where there was no leasing out of the items. You just downloaded a link. They got your phone number as soon as you walked in. They sent you a text, and it sent me a link to download an app. And so there are companies out there. I could definitely if people have questions about specific company names, you can get my contact information at the end of the conference call, and I can send that to you. I just don't know the names off the top of my head. Next question.
Thank you. We've had a couple people ask, what is the best way to get a custom app developed, and generally, how much does it cost to create?
Well, so the custom app wording is, it's a little misleading because there are starting to be some product companies out there now that, are creating more templated type of apps. And the way I guess what we need to look at is you want to make sure that the app is going to be used. So, a lot of the early adoption apps were basically just social media, engagement, and maybe you could donate. But nobody's going to download an app in order to just fundraise, unless it's like in a specific event app, like I was talking about earlier with TeamRaiser or Friend to Friend or, any of those other platforms where it's being extended to the mobile channel. I learned that with Tap and Give, the app that I launched back in 2010, that, people need to have a reason to use the app, which is why I wanted to explain the American Red Cross app and some others, the breast cancer app and so forth, where it's really the user is getting something out of it for their own personal gain, but it happens to be coming through, the nonprofit and achieving their mission, right? So for a custom application, really it's going to range anywhere from, $10,000, depending on what it's doing, all the way upwards of, $100,000. I mean, it's a very loaded question because it really is going to depend on the functionality and what you're wanting people to be able to do. And that's why I'm very, cautious about telling, nonprofits that they should have a mobile app, because it really isn't necessarily for every single nonprofit, and it's not necessarily going to be for fundraising either. It's going to be many times for achieving missions. Which can go back to fundraising, because of course you'll get a grant in order to fund that application. But I'm really trying to come up with a model where I can start educating foundations, because I think that those people that are holding the purse strings need to understand how important mobile technology is in delivering services. But, when it comes to where to go to create a custom app, I mean, I definitely recommend approaching, a company that has, a solid track record in understanding not only nonprofits, but in understanding like how to build an app that's going to be engaging. So really, using that a strategy to understand, what are your business objectives, or what are your organizational objectives, and then how can we build a product that's going to meet those objectives. So, for a fundraising app, it may be something that you're not going to pay as much for because it's more templated and you're going to have to change it every year, with new information. Whereas if it's a utility app, it's going to be constantly evolving, and so that's going to be a larger investment because it's going to be more specific to your organization. Hopefully that helped answer that question.
Thank you very much. And I think we'll take one more question at this break and then address some more at the end. Next question, can you talk more about text-to-give options? What companies facilitate this? Can you recommend providers?
The ones I have had the most contact with and know the most about are Mobile Cause, that's mobile and C-A-U-S-E, they're out of California, and MGive, so the letter M and then give. I will say I've noticed that they used to be very, very focused in their marketing language about text-to-give, and now they're starting to enhance that language to be more about communications because they're understanding that the investment that you have to make, and just to be clear, I mean, it's not inexpensive to get on these types of programs because you have upfront costs anywhere from $500 and up, to just get into the program. but you also wait like 90 days to get your money. The money is limited to $5 or $10 gifts at a time, which to me is, leaving money on the table. And, many times, although they'll tell you that it's not a problem to integrate, getting that donor information and having it integrate with your existing donor management system is not seamless at all. So between the cost, the weight, and the logistics of text-to-give programs, I truly don't believe it's the way necessarily to start and for the majority of nonprofits to raise money. But those two companies, I have known people and do know people that work there and can certainly make introductions, but I do believe it's all about being strategic. And I'm done with that question. So are we ready to move on, and then we'll see what other questions come up at the end?
Yes, I think that sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the next few slides I'm going to be focusing on the mobile web. And just to be clear, that is, if any of you have a smartphone or can use somebody's smartphone to pull up a browser, so in the case of iPhone, that'll be Safari. Obviously, if you've got a Google operating system phone, that would be Google Chrome. But it's basically the ability to view web sites via mobile, okay? And so this is where I'm really going to be hammering in the majority of today's nonprofits need to focus. Why? Well, because, your email addresses that you've been collecting are still your gold mine. People are definitely getting overblown with emails, but at the end of the day, if you're doing an effective email marketing strategy, they're still the best way to convert donors and, or getting people registered for events or whatever action you're trying to have them take. Social media is completely mainstream, and people are accessing social media on their mobile devices to an astonishing rate. It's definitely like Facebook, I think, is there's well over 50% of Facebook's users exclusively use it on their mobile phone. It's also, our websites, our organizational websites are our handshake to the world. I mean, you are basically, for anybody who's researching organizations to understand more about their mission, to understand if it aligns with what, their values and who they are as individuals and whether they want to invest in your nonprofit, this is where they're going to do it. And they're going to do it on their mobile phones more and more, with over 50% of American adults owning a smartphone now. So reaching these new constituents and would-be donors and either getting them engaged or turning them off because you're not making it easy for them to engage with you and learn about you, to me is a critical mistake. So I want to go a little bit into why, even though smartphones have been around, since 2007, 2008, why is it that, mobile web is becoming big now? Well, in my estimation, this is, again, Tanya's version, but I think that there's some theory that can go behind this. In 2008, Apple launched the App Store. And I don't know about you, but watching TV 2008, 2009, every other channel, or every other commercial that came on was there's an app for that, right? I mean, they were very engaging and entertaining commercials, and Apple dominated the app market for quite some time, and frankly, they do have, in my estimation, the best used apps out there. So it really, there was no, I guess, rush to build websites for mobile because, frankly, the phone technology wasn't really set up for that because obviously Apple built their phones, right, and now they've launched the iTunes App Store, and so they had this controlled environment, proprietary environment, where there was really no need to use the mobile web. And frankly, the broadband access that I talked about earlier, even back in 2008, 2009, was much less widespread than it is now, right? Because these Verizons and AT&Ts and everybody were making these investments in these towers. So the apps were the go-to technology on the phones. So then what had started happening is that 2010, 2011, these standalone companies started offering, well, hey, people are buying these mobile phones, these smartphones, you need to have your site mobilized. So there are these SaaS offerings out there that have evolved, and some of them are doing very well to offer creating a very simple mobile website on a separate platform and charging a monthly fee. For instance, a company that I've engaged with before, you can get a very basic mobile website for $59 per month because they host it, and it's their database and back end that you're inputting the information into, all the way up to $300 and something per month is I think the highest I've seen, depending on how many pages, right? But, and here's a big but, there are two sets of content to manage, which I know all of you are shaking your heads. I mean, who has time to be managing two sets of website content? Certainly not any of you. You're also not hosting it on your environment. So if you have WordPress or Drupal or whatever it may be, and you have a hosting provider and you're going in and you're updating your site, you're on your own, other than the hosting, this is your own system, right? The mobile content is on a proprietary system. So you aren't really in complete control or ownership of that. So if the site, if their servers go down, that could have an effect on, clearly people accessing your mobile website. And then the other thing is that you have a different URL for mobile versus desktop. Like you'll see a lot of examples in the nonprofit space where it says m dot, such and such .org. This, again, for nonprofits and businesses and so forth that were launching mobile websites back in 2010, 2011, and even today, I mean, this was commonplace. But what I'm here to educate you about is a different strategy, and it's probably not something that many of you have heard of, but I think it's really important to understand, and I'm going to show some examples. So I want to touch on, when I'm talking about this, I brought this question into the mix here because I want to differentiate between tablets and smartphones, because most of what I'm talking about today are are smartphones. But I wanted to give you an idea of how fast the tablet, and that is the iPad or any of, the oversized phone, or what I would consider is what most people are doing is they're replacing their laptops with tablets. Keyboards and cloud computing are making jump drives and USB starting to become a little irrelevant. And so a lot of people are switching to tablets. And let's see, 36% of you said that 20% own smartphones today, and then 38% said 35%. It actually is 20% of all adults own a tablet in the United States, which is still 1/5 of the U.S. adult population, which is huge. And when you look at age groups like in the 30s and 40s, that number jumps up significantly to be in the high 30s. So definitely you guys are in the right ballpark here. Okay, so I found a couple of articles that really articulates this well, but it makes sense if you think about it. We wake up in the morning and we check our phones because we're getting ready for work, and, we're not going to necessarily turn on our desktop or laptop computer at home. We're on the go, we're checking things. Then we get to work and we're on our desktop computer. Then perhaps later on the way, browsing in front of the TV, you might be using a tablet, and then finally at the end of the day, you might check your phone again. So it really seems to be that the smartphone, your mobile phone, is where people are deciding if they're going to hold on to your information and read it later, or whether they're going to trash it. The mobile device is becoming pretty much the trash can for direct, if you look at it from a direct mail perspective, right? A lot of times, people will start getting so much junk mail that they just sit over the garbage can and start checking it in. Well, hopefully recycling then, but you get my drift here. The mobile device is used as a way to curate information that they're going to read for later and prioritize that. So if you can't make it past the mobile device, then chances are you're going to become less relevant and you're not going to be able to make it into their crowded lives. It really comes down to, I know that there's still a lot of testing going on from an email standpoint, but the time, the day, and the frequency that you send your emails is really, as I was saying before, if you look at this progression, you might want to consider when you're sending your emails and testing those open rates and doing some A/B testing to understand, how your users are engaging with your emails based on the time of day. I know that definitely takes some time and dedication to do, but it can mean more engaged donors. And so it's really, by the end of it, I obviously stay up on top of my statistics so much because I have to be knowing everything mobile, but by the end of 2012, more emails are going to be opened on mobile versus desktop. Just 3 months ago, this was saying 2013. So the experts out there that are doing this market research are even moving this timetable up. And so it's really critical that you as marketers and fundraisers get very clear that mobile and email are really important to focus on. This is not about being innovative anymore. It's about being relevant to your constituents because this is the new normal. This slide here shows another one of our finalists here in North Carolina. We have a cancer-focused nonprofit, and they have a radio program that goes on air. But, I was educating them. I said, listen, a lot of people are listening to podcasts or listening to things after the fact that get recorded, and having a mobile presence for that cancer show, that's actually what it's called, could really help you reach more people beyond the regular listening area. And so we mapped out this with the strategy that I did with them, now mobile strategy session, we mapped out how exactly that would work and who it would benefit and how their, people that rely on them for these services would engage with this mobile website that would be surrounding, that cancer show. So it really, it is about being in the new normal. It is about thinking about the content that you want to have your users engage with. So as I was saying earlier, the 2010-2011 time frame was when these separate websites were being built, and they're still being built. But as mobile strategists here and somebody who works a lot with nonprofits and businesses, what we are advocating here at Atlantic BT is really thinking mobile first. And what that means is that there is now the ability to make your website respond to whatever device a person is using. And we do this by using what's called responsive technology. So I'm going to show you, and Jessica, I'm going to switch over here to sharing a couple of sites that I'd like to model. The first one is, can you see that okay?
It's coming up now, yes.
Okay, perfect. So we have a client, WBAL, which is a media news radio station out of Baltimore, Maryland, and they came to us because they needed a new website, but they were also really getting concerned because their traffic coming from mobile devices was starting to go up, and they had two things, right? So they had to worry about not only their audience and staying relevant to their audience, but they also had a revenue stream through their advertisers, right? And online advertising is big. So they were like, what is the best way for us to invest in a new website and solve these problems of keeping our customers happy by making our content easily readable and engaged with via tablets or smartphones, and also keep our advertisers happy. And so what our developers, web developers and designers did was we created what's called this responsive site. And I'm going to grab the corner here, and as you can see, it's almost like a fluid website, right? There's coding that's done now that allows for the site to collapse and reconfigure as we make it smaller. So this is what it would look like in theory on a mobile phone, right, smartphone. And it really is going to adapt it's going to respond based on whichever smartphone screen size it is, because it's based on percentages, and so the site reconfigures to whatever screen size it is. And what happens is that our team worked with their team to understand, well, what type of content do you want to have showing? What are your users visiting and using and engaging with the most? And that's, where we're able to help give advice and work with our clients on understanding which content to put up first. So for a nonprofit's case, it may be I'm going to also show you another example here. It may be a program that you want to make sure that your constituents are receiving. This is another example. The federal government. Now, if you know if the federal government is moving on something and asking their agencies to do something, you know it's hitting the tipping point. So you can take that as you may, but the AIDS.gov website is also responsive. Okay, so people who are visiting this site will see one configuration that's very easy to engage with if they're on their smartphone, or perhaps on their tablet, or obviously on their desktop. So I hope that this helps explain what I'm talking about here, because you're talking about one website, one set of content, one URL, okay? And what I've been finding out with Google is, of course, Google pretty much runs the Internet, right? So what I've been finding out recently is that they are definitely proposing and recommending that organizations or companies, anybody who has a website, go with this responsive design, because their little Google bots that do, that basically understand like where the, which device the site is being accessed from, they don't have to work as hard if it's a one site fits all, and the site will load faster, which is really important because we're so used to having everything happen instantaneously that, when your site takes a long time to load, that could be the difference between you getting a donation or you getting that event registration and not. So I hope that I'm, emphasizing this with the significance that is intended, because it's really important to start thinking about these types of investments. And Jessica, if you could bring me back to the presentation now, that would be great. Okay. Can you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, I put down here in the corner, I'm trying to be a little tongue-in-cheek here, but pinch and zoom is very 2011. So another example I wanted to make sure I highlighted that you folks can go look at on your own time is the Boston Globe. Does a great job at that. And, just have fun. I mean, you'll see that more and more sites are starting to do this, and it's very simple to simply grab the corner and, and drag across your screen to see if it reconfigures, and you'll know if it's doing that. That's called a responsive web design. So I turn it back over to you folks. How does your website look on a smartphone? First question would be, I haven't looked at it on the mobile web. Perhaps I've looked, it looks fine. It doesn't need to do anything different than what it is. It's okay if you actually do the pinch and zoom, which I just had joked about earlier, which most people are starting to not do at all. They're just going to abandon. I've looked. It's a mess. I don't know where to start. Could be perhaps what some of you feel. We've mobile optimized our donation forms. Perhaps some of you have gone to the investment of doing your donation forms, which is a great first start. Or our site or parts of it have been mobile So it looks like the majority of you either have not looked at it or it looks okay if you pinch and zoom, which I would say you definitely need to start thinking that with the mindset that that is soon going to not be okay because of the fact that, or I would say it's even not okay now, because if people have to do that in order to engage with and find out about who you are, they're going to start thinking, why don't they have a mobile website? This company does, that company does. I mean, if people think that, oh, well, it's a nonprofit, they probably haven't invested, they're going to start thinking, well, if they're not doing that to reach me, what is it that they're also not doing? Well, it really is just like your website and having your website look good. Having a mobile-ready site that can be engaged with is a true, representation of how well you run as an organization. So I just, I'll leave it at that and move on to the next slide. Okay. So I'm definitely not trying to pick on World Wildlife Fund here, but I hope they're not on the call. But even if they are, I think it would be fair to say that this, this is a little challenging to me because this is a very separate mobile website that has a very different look and feel, other than the logo, from the regular site. So if I'm somebody who is wanting to find out more about the organization, and I'm looking at both of these things, I would just be very confused as to, who they're trying to reach and what they're trying to accomplish. Because what they're emphasizing on the mobile piece is very different than what they're emphasizing on the desktop website. The coloring scheme is not at all the same. The imaging scheme is not at all the same. So I would definitely argue that branding does matter, and this is something that I hope that they're working on. But as of a couple weeks ago, they do have two separate sites. One thing that I did want to point out that they're doing well, since they are fully mobilized, is that they do give people options to donate. Which is important. Obviously, sometimes people still want to pick up the phone and call, which obviously it is a phone, so you can do this very easily by tapping on the number and it automatically dials. The social media down in the corner is prominent. So many people are watching videos on YouTube from their smartphones. It's astonishing. I don't even know the billions of page views on mobile last I saw, but it is a significant number, and if you use video to tell your story or to give updates or to show past events or anything, mobile and video is a great combination. One thing that, in Text to Give, obviously they're a large organization, and they've chosen to still hold on to the Text to Donate program. But again, if the person uses the form the last choice there, they can give an unlimited amount through their phone via credit card versus giving, as you can see right there, the mobile phone number to donate $10. So I would say, again, leaving money on the table there by still having Text to Give as a part of that campaign on their mobile website. The other piece that I want to bring up is, you've got repeat donors. I think technology is really starting to become more robust now, where the integration with mobile donation forms and your back-end CRM enables people's information to be saved, which makes one-tap and two-tap donations, the ease of giving a quick donation when prompted via an email, much better on conversion. So again, a topic I can talk to individually if you want to reach out to me on that. But if there's anything you can do right now to invest, it would be in optimizing your donor forms for mobile. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jessica. I know we've covered a lot of information in that last session, and I'm obviously feel strongly about this strategy for the mobile web, so I'd love to hear some questions.
Yeah, we do have a couple questions on the mobile web. Someone asked, what are the first steps to take in creating a website with a responsive design?
Sure. So as I was explaining before with the WBAL example, I think it really comes down to, A, looking at your Google Analytics, so how people are engaging with your website, what pages are they visiting the most, what things are you emphasizing that people are engaging with, what's most engaging on your site. I also think that it's important to think about like what social media you are using because that may factor into what you use for mobile. But really it comes down to the way that we work with our clients is that the technology is obviously one piece of it, but it's really about accomplishing your goals, right? So if your goals are to get more email addresses, if it's to educate more people, if it's to get more donations, which I'm sure is a combination of all of those things, we have user experience specialists that look at your data and then and give recommendations as to how people are engaging with information, and then we help with creating that layout for mobile, which of course then builds back out to the desktop because it's all one website. But we help in determining, how information will be displayed based on that particular nonprofit and their needs. I mean, certainly there's going to be some, just human what's the word I'm looking for? Human behaviors, right, that are going to go across the board for mobile. But again, that's going to be a combination between that and what the individual organization's business needs are.
Thank you. Another question, what is the term of art for that type of device response coding?
I'm sorry, you broke up for a second.
What is the term of art for that type of device responsive coding?
The term of art, I guess I don't understand the question.
I think just what term is used, what is the term for that type of device responsive coding?
So it's called responsive design. If you were going to Google it, responsive design. Also, you'll see a lot of what's called mobile first. And the whole idea of mobile first is taking an organization's content, like what they're trying to communicate to the world, and looking at it through the lens of mobile first, so really, understanding what the minimum viable product is, so to speak, so what information is most critical, and then moving out to the desktop from there. So, in other words, if you have a physical location, for example, where people are visiting your facility, you would make sure that, because clearly mobile is going to factor into somebody coming to a location a lot of times, right? Like you're seeing a lot of times restaurants, and think of what you yourselves do. What do you search for on your mobile phone? And maybe it's going to be something that typically you're going to go to, and so that would be a great example of what would go into mobile first. But getting back to its responsive design, as well as mobile first, will provide a lot of education information online as to what that goes into. And it really, to get into the development aspects of it, it's called HTML5 is the coding, and I believe it's CSS is some of the other development language as well. But I'm not a developer, so I'm not privy to the exact terminology.
Thank you. Does a current website have to be totally redesigned to be turned into a responsive site format, and how much does it cost?
That's a great question, and I'm glad that somebody asked that. So there's a lot of organizations out there who may need a new site, but in many cases, perhaps you've built a site and it's only a year or two old, and it still is serving purposes very well. What we would then recommend, and it is very possible to adapt the site to mobile devices, and that would be actually what's called adaptive. So instead of creating a site from scratch and building the technology to have it be more of a fluid design, we could go in and do adaptive design, or responsive for that matter. But adaptive basically means that it would fit for certain device sizes. So it would be based on dimensions, which tends to be a little less expensive than, let's say, responsive, where it's based all on percentages, and so there's more coding that's involved. But for any organization that has, say, WordPress or Drupal, I don't believe there's any real web platforms out there that we could not, or any web developer could not go in that knows how to build out this new technology and adapt the sites. Adaptive is, like I said, it's a little less coding, and so really it could be anywhere. Again, I'm going to shoot numbers out here, but in our situation, we're an agency, and so we don't have, let's say, packages per se. It's based on hourly rate, and so depending on the depth of your website, it's going to depend on how long it would take, right, to fully get that site to be mobile optimized. But you're looking at anywhere from probably $3,000 to $10,000 to adapt the site. Having said that, we are going to be, I think, and you probably will see this perhaps with some of your own vendors, where sites moving forward, and certainly you need to scrutinize your vendors if they're not, need to be looking at, well, how is my site built so that it's going to be responsive. So if there's any of you guys out there that are considering investing in a new website in the near or not so near future, those are critical questions that you need to ask. Is, what is the expense to make this a one site fits all, not one size, but one site fits all for all devices, versus just making it for desktop, and do you have a plan for responsive design? So again, I know it's a very wide range from 3,000 to 10 plus, but it truly depends on the depth of your site.
Thank you very much. And we do have some more questions, but I think for the sake of time, if you want to move along, we'll get to some more questions at the end.
Yeah. The other slides are not as in-depth, and I really wanted to spend time on this piece because I do find it so critical to where you guys need to focus. But I'll move on. I just wanted to touch quickly on QR codes. The jury is still out. There's a lot of people out there who are like, don't even bother. I, on the other hand, think that there is a great set of uses for them. Social media, if you're looking to get more people engaged on your social media and you have opportunities at events to get people in one place that that aren't on your list, start a contest. You can use QR codes to get them entered through social media channels. I can, again, talk more on that if there's more interest in that. You can capture people's emails at events. Again, if you're giving them something in exchange for that email, even better, perhaps, again, going through entering a contest. But they've got their smartphones on and they're taking pictures with it. They're doing texting. They can scan a QR code simply by downloading a quick, there's like 12 or 15 different apps per iPhone or Android that have free QR code scanners. They are becoming a lot more prevalent, and it's great too if you do send donor appeals, put a QR code on it with a link to your mobile donation form. Because many people rather do that than write out a check or give online and sitting at their desktop, and they're going to forget. So why not just do it while they're sitting there with their phone in front of the TV and they can give right there. Media is a great way to show. I mean, if you want to launch a new video that you just did or perhaps a radio show, this particular QR code will take you to an episode that I was on about 2 months ago with Cause Talk Radio with Joe Waters. And it, again, is just talking about how pervasive mobile is and a little bit about the contest I did. But I definitely think that there is a place for QR codes and that it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Funding opportunities, I wanted to show this just quickly because the latest stats is that by 2017, 25% of all online sales will happen via smartphones. So just like back in the early 2000s when people are like, oh, people aren't going to donate on desktop, on the Internet, that was really the belief back then. Like, why should we bother having a website? Well, just like e-commerce has taken off online and so many people shop online now, that progression is happening with mobile. And believe it or not, folks, it's happening faster than the adoption of the Internet did because technology is just moving so much faster. So if you're on the fence at all, these types of statistics should really convince you that waiting is really becoming less and less of an option. I've started finding more and more of these types of programs. Again, this is run through the government. If none of you have heard of challenge.gov, I really highly recommend looking into it. This is, for instance, people could come up with ideas for an application that would help people manage their money. So I can see this being applied in so many different areas, from healthcare, advocacy, environment, whatever it may be. There's definitely opportunities to enhance those areas using mobile and making our lives easier and more productive and more enjoyable. I went a little bit, I talked about the contest already, so I won't go any more into that, but there's some links at the end. And really, when it comes to funding, I think going after companies, local and regional and even national, depending on who you are, underwriting and having a cause partnership on mobile is very appealing to them because they want people's eyeballs, and people's eyeballs are much more focused when it's on mobile versus desktop, and they're spending more time there anyway. I think more and more that we need to educate grantors on grant allocation. We've worked with a couple nonprofits where I actually have asked to see the grant application so that we can make in this case it was a native application, specified to what the grantors are asking for. So for program-related grants, mobile, there's a huge opportunity there. Like I was showing before, there's innovation grants. Millennials are just, if you have volunteers, if you have staff members, get these folks involved because they are the ones that are using the mobile phones to the highest extent, and they can be a huge resource of ideas. And then also, you've got to add this to your operating line budget. You've got to. You have to make this investment, particularly in the mobile web area, and you need to tie it in with ROI because you will, if you're doing good metrics with Google Analytics or whatever system you're using, you will start seeing an increase. Let's hope not a decrease because you aren't doing it, but more of an increase because you are investing and getting more donations. So here's the million-dollar question. Who is going to be starting to implement a mobile technology and strategy by the end of 2012, which is in less than 5 months? First half of 2013. By the end of 2013, I've already got this covered, or I have no plans to get into mobile. Let's see here. And hopefully I have educated many or most of you on moving that up to whatever you were thinking you might want to do this strategy and technology investment by, because as you can see, things are moving very quickly, not just time, but mobile technology. So it looks like by the 50+% of you are still going to wait over a year. Okay. I'm glad to see that there's several of you who are going to be doing it in the next 6 or so months. I guess I would encourage many of you who are still looking at doing something in the latter part of 2013. I hope that you'll consider moving the investment priorities up because I do believe that this is an area that if you aren't staying to pace, it is going to hurt you eventually and hurt the mission. Okay, does anybody have any questions specific to funding, or perhaps we could go back to some of the other questions, Jessica, if we have time?
Absolutely. We have a couple questions to go back to, so we'll take as many questions as we could fit in here. Someone asked, where do we acquire cell phone data for text campaigns?
Cell phone data. So really, I don't know if there's specific to texting, but a lot of the, so AdMob, ADMOB, is a big market research firm that does research on mobile usage. There are some other organizations that I was mentioning earlier in the presentation, and now, of course, they're escaping me. But ComScore is another one, COMSCORE, and again, these are most of the time you can find these free, or at least the overviews with the numbers, free resources by searching on Google. And there's one more that is escaping me, but those are two big ones that do quarterly reports now, because mobile technology is evolving so rapidly that they don't do them annually or biannually anymore, but quarterly.
Thank you. Another question, has anyone used an app for memorial giving?
Specifically for memorial giving, I have not personally seen that. To be honoring somebody, I guess, is what they're perhaps referring to in memorial. I haven't seen that specifically. I guess, again, I would be a little concerned that having an app built only and exclusively to give one time would be not a good investment, where it comes to like a fundraising event where a bulk of that nonprofit's budget is raised on these large events that typically have like multiple locations in the same state and so forth. That's where you're going to have an app that's going to be used heavily for 2 to 3 months of time, and you're going to see more donations as a result.
Thank you. Next question, how do you go about optimizing your donor form for mobile?
Great question. So it really is going to depend on most of the providers now. Whoever you have your donor, so if you use, say, Convio or Blackbot or Razoo or any of those, PayPal, you're going to want to start there first and see what they have done as far as investment, because a lot of these better-known companies that work with nonprofits almost exclusively should, if they haven't already, have a plan or have already implemented a plan where they can go in and for a few hours of time or give you a template, provide you with a mobile donation form. It may end up being an investment. It may be part of your package. It's really going to be an individual, but that's where you would you would start. And if they're not able to do it, then you would probably look at a company that does web development web development, and see about them being able to optimize that particular landing page for mobile, and then they would be able to implement that.
Thank you. If we use a company for mobile site, would we still need a responsive design?
No, it's either or. So what I'm advocating is to not have a separate mobile website, okay, because, again, you've got 2 buckets of content that you're having to manage. You would then, as I'm advising, and my advice is to look into having a site, one site fits all responsive site that could be built in your existing web software. So whether it's WordPress or Drupal or Joomla or whatever it may be. So it's either or, and I would advocate for the latter, which is responsive.
Thank you. And we have 3 more questions, and I know we're right about at the end of time, but we'll get to these and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Next question. If you scan a QR code, can they capture your email or cell without your permission?
No. That information would have to be input by the end user. So that's why I was mentioning the use of contests or incentives as a way to provide a like on Facebook or an email or a phone number. You need to give them something in order for them to give back. If that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
Thank you. Do you know what company was used for the 3 ways to give on the WWF website?
I did not look on that. There's several. If you just do mobile websites, a lot of those companies will come up. It may have been, oh my goodness. You know what? I cannot remember. I've been really spending so much time investing in research on responsive, fluid sites, and less on having, the third-party proprietary standalone mobile websites that I really haven't been focused on that. But if they're really adamant, you can contact contact me. My contact information is on the last slide here, and I can find that and get back to you.
Great. Last question. What do you think about third-party services like MGive and Mobile Cause for small nonprofits with a very small budget?
I'm not a huge advocate that they invest their time and money there. Especially, the smaller the nonprofit, the more thoughtful you need to be on how you allocate your resources. And I think that, again, without knowing whether you're getting individual donations or if you're mainly focused on, grants, but if you're trying to grow your individual donor base, which I know a lot of nonprofits are out there right now, I think that investing in mobile web technology, as I talked about at the end, and focusing on growing email lists and growing social media engagement is really important. And just because you have a liker on Facebook doesn't mean that, you're necessarily being successful. I think it's all about engagement, and there's going to be campaigns that are done to make that engagement most useful. But what I will say, as I talked about in the earlier part of the presentation, text to give and SMS, there are going to be ways to use them to be relevant to your constituents. In the case of cancer, stopping smoking, or perhaps about banking. Certain areas of nonprofits could do very well in those types of texting and SMS programs. But for the overwhelming majority of you out there, to get $10 donations, it's cost prohibitive.
Well, thank you very much, and that is all the time we have for today. Do you have any other final remarks you'd like to make?
Well, I know that I'm sure, again, this is such a deep area, and I could have talked about so much, and as it is, I feel like there was, we went over time a little bit. So I encourage anybody who's on Twitter to follow me at iHeartCharity. I definitely use Google Plus a lot, and I encourage you guys to do so as well because it is run by Google, and there's a lot going on there. And here's my contact information via email as well. I'd certainly love to be a resource. I talk and tweet a lot about this specific area, and I thank everybody for their time and attention today and hope that everybody got a lot of interesting and useful information out of it.
Thank you very much, Tanya. And to wrap things up, I do want to remind everyone of the next webinar we have coming up on August 23rd. It is entitled Ethics. For more information on this webinar and all of the 2012 webinars, you can go to afpnet.org. And lastly, I do want to go ahead and bring up an evaluation for our attendees. If you all would take the time to fill this out and give us your feedback, we would really appreciate it, and we take it into account when planning future webinars. Remember, the survey will loop so everyone at your location can fill it out. On behalf of AFP, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today and for your great questions. I would also like to thank Tanya for sharing her expertise. This concludes today's webinar. To end this call, you can simply hang up.